based on some of these techniques, we can get all kinds of different looks. Here's a really similar, actually, preset. And in this preset, I've just simply duplicated. And this one's a lot simpler. This just for every key, it increments count. So down here at the bottom, I just have count. It's being just driven by a single LFO. And I've got a key trigger for every single note. So it's really good for things like arpeggios. So if I rewind this. You guys get the idea there? So just if you want to have a whole bunch of notes coming in, this also be probably pretty good for things like finger drumming or anytime you have a lot of rapid events or rapid hits. But other than that, it's really similar to the last example that we looked at. I can change the offset here of 2 layers. I've got just basically 2 layers of ShapeMaker running over the top of one another. You could also do basically have no frequency, no amplitude, and that's what I have going for something like this. So this is just rectangles, and then audio analysis marching forward. Trying to make use of those rounding. And then I kind of kept playing around with this and started to see what kind of different looks I could get. This one uses VDMX's Chroma Zoom and Motion Mask. So here's what it looks like with just the plain ShapeMaker. And then I add the Chroma Zoom, and using motion started to separate the motion. What I like about this one is when it's silent, it kind of goes back to its original color. That one's really good for, lots of dynamic range, quiets and louds and stillness, that sort of thing. I'm just kind of going through some of these settings now. I also built a real glitchy one of this. It's the same patch. And to get that look, to get that strobe look, I've got color relookup going on here. I've got the same motion mask, which would give me some of this if you want that to have the color. Depends on the look that you'd want. That color relookup is what's pushing everything to black and white. Okay, and then I have this one I want to share with you guys. So now on this one, actually, I have a color wheel that's kind of being driven. It's marching forward just in hue. And so what I've got here is a solid color. And that's being applied to the top level, and then the bottom level has a similar color that's just had its saturation toned down a little bit. So I've got my layer 2 as my solid color, and my layer 1 is my ShapeMaker. I've just chosen circles here. My blend mode is on add, and then there's no fill. It's just stroke with a very minimal stroke size. And the audio is just barely impacting that stroke size there, which gets this result. And actually, this is another technique I like to do a lot. So maybe I can show this to you guys. Let's do this as a demo. I'm going to come in here to my control surface. I've got 2 control surfaces. This is my key range and trigger. What I want to do is just do the same thing with an LFO. That LFO is just going to increment using a similar technique that we've used. So it's just a ramp, and every time I press a button, it'll increment up that ramp. Only to have this drive color, I'm going to have it drive the hue of control surface. So let me come here to control surface 1, and I'll let me get rid of all this stuff. Let's just build it from scratch. I'm going to come here and create a color wheel, and I want to have the hue of the color wheel be driven by a slider. So I'm going to create a slider. I'm going to call it hue, right like that. And then I want to have the stroke color be driven by this color. So I'll just control drag it over to there. And then I want to increment the hue. And so I'm going to have this then increment hue. I'm going to have this hue drive the hue of the color. So now it marches along the color wheel. And then I want to have a second color. Let's create another color wheel. And this one, I want to have it have the same hue value. So I'm just going to have it also be controlled by hue. But then I want to just decrease the saturation, right, like that. Cool. And so then this will go into my background color, this will go into my foreground color, and we're going to create kind of a relationship between these colors, right? So you get the idea. Maybe I'd also, instead of just changing hue, maybe I'd bring the value down on this one a little bit. Also, let's see, on the over the top of this whole thing on main output, I have a little bit of trace, which is causing that kind of persistence and accumulation look. A little bit of trace over the top, which is giving a nice blur. So rather than go through and build some of these, so this sort of thing I like to do a lot, like come to my color and have it be driven by some sort of data source, and then come up with some sort of rule. Like even if I wanted to do split complement, say, like have this hue here, instead of being driven directly by this value, what I'm going to do is come here to control surface, and I'll create a second hue. I'll come here to slider. Let's call this hue 2. And then I'm going to come here to hue 2, and it's going to be driven by hue 1, right like that. And then hue 2 is going to drive the secondary color. Only this time, in here, I'll go into my NumFX chain, and I'll add an offset plus wrap. So this will just give me an offset of that color. So this means that as this color is on one side of the color wheel, I'll get its complementary color on the other side of the color wheel. And this will make for a nice color palette. This will give us green and blue, and then as we keep playing, it'll march forward. You guys get the idea. And then I think maybe this hue is, I might tone this down a little bit because it's kind of neon. Maybe I'll desaturate it a bit to get a more subtler color blend there. Cool, so I just want to share with you guys some of the presets in here and some of the techniques that I used. The last thing I'd like to show you is I've got a final preset here that is this setup going on. And this one is, let's see, let's tone back the amplitude a little bit here. Okay, so what's going on with this one? Yes, on this one, I have actually, the first version of these first presets are before I recorded this video training series, and now this is the ShapeMaker plugin I have after the end of the video training series. And I've made some adjustments, I've updated a few things, so I thought I would walk through the changes that I made, and then it's up to you guys if you want to build your own ShapeMaker plugin. I would love to see what kind of additions you'd like to make to this sort of thing. So here's some of the changes in my ShapeMaker plugin. After the end of this training series, I added a few things. So if you guys download it, you'll see a little bit of code refactoring. The first thing I did was I added another shape type in here. I thought it might be really useful to have a triangle. And you're welcome to go to that reference at Book of Shaders and implement all the shape types if you like. That might be a good project. So I also observed that when I was bringing this into VDMX, I oftentimes was just making a second layer for a solid color or background color. So I decided to build a background color as well. So I have an alpha button here that I can just turn the alpha on and off. And then this background color, I can just choose it and change it. And then I also have an option that rather than using this individual background color, to have it be one of the fill colors. So if I turn this Boolean on here, that will let me use one of the fill colors, and then I've got a modifier here that'll just march through those fill colors. And I found myself doing that a lot too. That's similar to that first example we looked at, so I actually kind of coded that in. Also had some other fun here with the circle types, so I thought it'd also be fun to kind of have some methods for assignment on the circle types. So you can choose circle, rectangle, or triangle, like this. And let's use the background color of black. But you can also come and you can iterate through them. So this goes circle, circle, square, triangle, circle, square, triangle. Then this modifier down here, this will actually just go ahead and start with circle, or you can start with square, or you can start with triangle. So it iterates through the options, which in this case there's just 3, but I might add more later. Straight will actually do the same thing if I go ahead and use this modifier slider. Then it has different functionality. It'll just cycle between the different options. So you could keyframe that as well. Excuse me, you could drive that with data. Finally, I also have a random mode, and then this becomes the seed. So I can add random shapes, which I think is a lot of fun. I like that functionality, so I brought that in here to my fills as well. A straight mode, which then when you change the value on the modifier, it'll just walk through the different fills. An iterate mode, which if you walk through the modifier will then walk through the fills and reassign them. And I found this is really cool too. It also assigned to some data. A random mode, and then this becomes the seed random. A distribute mode, and then this becomes walks through the different fill colors. A blend mode, and this also looks really cool when you drive it with some parameters. And a none mode, and that none mode, if you add some stroke, you can just get outlines, and you get quite a lot of looks out of just those outlines. So those are some of the changes that I've made in addition to what we had in the training series. And I would say one kind of final change I've made in here is I've refactored my code a little bit. Rather than having separate functions for circle, square, and triangle, I've got a single draw shape function, and then I pass it a shape type. And I don't think I'm quite done refactoring here. What I would like to do is be able to mix the different shapes so that eventually my shape type can mix between these different shapes, which I think would look pretty cool as well. Here we are at the end of our training series together. I hope that you've enjoyed this introduction to shader code, the interactive shader format, and graphics programming in general. It's been my goal for this training series to make it as accessible as possible. A quick note, if you look at some other code out there on some other places, like shadertoy.com, probably a lot of what you might see might be a lot more technical than what we've gone over today. I think that's okay. I think this is a great place to start, and my training is as an artist and designer. My goals are to bring this stuff to my design practice and to make it accessible for other people. You can find VDMX if you want to know more about VDMX. You can find them at vidvox.net. VDMX is the commercial product of VIDVOX. Interactive Shader Format is an open source project that's supported by the good folks at VIDVOX. So definitely check out VDMX Professional VJ Software, and kudos to those guys for making all of this possible. If you want to know more about Interactive Shader Format, you can find that at interactiveshaderformat.com. This is a great place to check out other ISF files that people have authored, to learn about more stuff, and generally just kind of mess around and play around. So check out more ISF files at interactiveshaderformat.com. You can follow VidVox on Twitter. They're at VidVox, and there's also a VDMX user group. Also, of course, none of this would be possible without OpenGL, which is the overall system that all of this is built on. And this entire training series would not have been possible without Patricia Gonzalez Vivo and Jen Lowe's excellent book of shaders. Most of the information that came from the ShapeMaker plugin and the things that we did together were based on the content of this really amazing website. So I encourage you guys to give it a look and donate if you're interested. Finally, you can find me at movecraft.com. This is my home on the web, and I have a demo reel here that's available for download. All of the project files, all of the stuff that you see here, and most of the files that I at least own the rights to, I post for free for download for you guys to check out. Some of them are VDMX files, there's some ISF in there, but mostly it's motion graphics related design stuff, interactive media, that sort of thing. So thanks very much, guys. I hope you had a great time. Our next training series will probably focus on making 3D shapes as opposed to 2D shapes, so look forward for the FormMaker plugin coming soon.